So this is Braxton Bragg. He's a Confederate general. He's a Confederate general who essentially lost every single one of the battles that he was given command of. He lost the Battle of Chattanooga, the Battle of Missionary Ridge, the Battle of Lookout Mountain, the Wilderness Campaign. He lost every one of these. He lost the Battle of Perryville, aka the Battle of Fort Kentucky. He also lost the Battle of Shiloh. Now, he tied the Battle of Stones River. They called that a tie. And then the Battle of Chickamauga, he won. So he did win one battle. Now, Braxton Bragg, who is the namesake, the original namesake for Fort Bragg, he once executed a Confederate soldier because he went home to take care of his mother and his daughter or sister. They were on the farm and they didn't have any males to help them raise crops. And so he took a French leave. The guy's name is Asa Lewis. He took a French leave. But Braxton Bragg didn't give him permission. Hey, can I go back to my home? Because no, you cannot. I want you to die in this battle fighting for slavery, fighting for racism. I need for you to be a terrorist against the United States government, the United States of America. So this guy is an enemy to America. He's a terrorist, and he's a terrorist on behalf of racism. So let's get into the details. Here is Asa Lewis. So you have Asa Lewis. They said that he was a young farm boy from Barron County, Kentucky. He was born about 1843. He joined Company E, the 6th Kentucky Infantry Regiment of the Orphan Brigade. The Orphan Brigade is going to get cut to pieces. That's what Breckinridge, a former vice president of the United States of America, was a Confederate, and he ran the Orphan Brigade, and it got cut to pieces once. So Lewis served with distinction at the Battle of Shiloh. He was promoted to corporal. On December 26, so one day after Christmas, 1862, Braxton Bragg had Asa Lewis executed for desertion. He deserted not once but twice. He went home to make arrangements for the financial needs of his starving mother and sisters. Asa Lewis' one-year enlistment had just expired, and he, like the rest of his men, enlisted for another year. He got word from his mother that she needed his help. They were struggling and needed his aid. He asked for a furlough, but Braxton Bragg said, "Fuck you. No, you don't get to help your damn family." He applied again and said he promised to come back as soon as possible. He gave a year of his life. General Bragg refused the request, saying discipline must be enforced no matter the circumstance. Asa Lewis left and was captured. However, at first, since the circumstances were so appealing, he wasn't court-martialed, and he was told to sin no more. But then he did sin again. He deserted again. What, you walked away from this war? His mother wrote again and begged him to come. Oh, great there, mother. Oh, you want me to just break my enlistment? Just break my enlistment? Is that what you want? He left again. He was again captured and brought to trial for desertion, sentenced to be shot. And a petition was sent to Bragg to have his sentence commuted to some less punishment. Bragg said no, discipline must be enforced. So Asa Lewis is going to be ordered shot in front of the whole division, the firing squad. And then I heard that it took 6 volleys. 6 volleys. So the firing squad didn't kill Asa Lewis the first shot or the second shot, but the third shot, eventually Asa Lewis is going to be murdered. Why? Because Braxton Bragg needed to enforce whatever the hell he was trying to enforce. So there's a quote here from James McPherson where they had said that not a single soldier in the entire Confederate Army ever loved Braxton Bragg. They never loved him nor respected him. And so, as Greene wrote, all was ready. He asked General Breckinridge for permission to say a few words, and he said, "Comrades, I know that you are all grieved to do this work, but don't be distressed. None of you will know who kills me, for you know that one of the guns has no ball in it, so each man may think that his was the harmless gun, but I beg of you to aim to kill when the command fire is given. It will be merciful to me. Goodbye." Goodbye, everybody. I've got to go. The lieutenant in command of the detail of executioners gave the command, ready, aim, fire. All was over and a gloom settled over the command. Surely clemency might have been used in this case with good effect. But why be merciful when you could be vicious? Asa Lewis, young Barron County, Kentucky farm boy, born around 1843. He was part of the Orphan Brigade. He didn't receive any training. He was just handed a rifle, and then he was told he was a soldier. And because he served with distinction at the Battle of Shiloh, he was promoted to corporal. December 26, 1862. That's actually right before the Emancipation Proclamation. General Braxton Bragg had young Asa Lewis executed for desertion after he went home to make arrangements to help his starving mother and sisters. His 1-year enlistment had expired. The Civil War troops, the Confederates, had called, leaving the battlefield with the intention of a return, a French leave. Asa Lewis was buried in the Murfreesboro City Cemetery. The bodies of that cemetery were moved after the war, so the exact site of Asa Lewis's grave has been lost. The execution of Asa Lewis deepened the resentment between the Kentuckians and General Bragg. Kentuckians petitioned that the sentence be commuted, but Braxton Bragg stood firm. To hell with you and to hell with your life. If you're not going to die on the battlefield, well, we're just going to kill you right now. Asa Lewis of Barron County had the misfortune of being under Bragg's command during the Civil War. Asa's widowed mother and sisters were left alone on their Barron River farm, which is now under Barron River Lake. During the war, they had no man to assist them in surviving, and somebody needed to make arrangements for the spring crops to be planted. Braxton Bragg refused to grant Asa leave, but he left anyways. I mean, that's disobedient. I mean, that's what they call that. There's like some fancy word. Well, he was not disobedient, but in something. He wasn't an obedient slave. He didn't just obey. Insubordination. Well, he was insubordinate. Well, that's a big fancy word with a bunch of syllables. But does it really rise to the level of death? George Washington had killed some deserters too. When I hear about the killing of deserters, it just makes me think about how, the Confederate soldiers, a lot of them were drafted into the war. And then once you sign up for war, then you're not allowed to walk away from war. It's like it's the worst thing ever. What was that? Birdstall? There was somebody that was in Afghanistan, and it was under Obama, and he just walked away, and everybody were talking about how awful this, Bergdahl was. Where was this? Let's see. Bergdahl, deserted Afghanistan. Bal Bergdahl, here it is. So this guy was just like an Asa Lewis, right? He was held captive for 5 years, and then he was captured after he left his post, but he was released as part of a prisoner exchange for 5 high-ranking Taliban members who were being held at the detention center at Guantanamo Bay. Bergdahl was tried by general court-martial on charges of desertion, misbehavior before the enemy. He entered a guilty plea before a military judge at Fort Bragg. So how ironic. On November 3rd, 2017, he was sentenced to be dishonorably discharged, reduced in rank to private, fined $1,000 per month from his pay for 10 months with no prison time. The fine and reduction in rank took effect immediately while the discharge was stayed, pending appeals to the Army Court of Criminal Appeals and later to the Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces, which affirmed the sentence on August 27, 2020. Bergdahl then filed in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia to have a U.S. federal judge review his sentence. And on July 25, 2023, the judge issued a ruling that voided his 2017 court-martial conviction. So this Bo Bergdahl, he turned out better than this Asa Lewis, right? So let's see. He was caught, brought back to his comrades. Bragg announced that if It happened again. He was going to be shot. Then he left again. I mean, that's twice that he was insubordinate. What do you think? This is a free country? You think we're fighting for freedom? You have the freedom to die fighting on the battlefield like a champion, or to die being shot by your own men like a loser. Do you want to die a winner or die a loser? Well, sir, I'd rather not die. I'd rather not be killed. I'd rather not be gunned down. After the 3 volleys of the firing squad, it was said that Breckinridge, the former vice president, I want to say either he was the 14th or under the 14th president. Breckinridge, man, he put his head down into his hands, because he was like, let's see right here, John C. Breckinridge was weeping in his saddle to the point of collapse. One of Bragg's nicknames was Peaches because he had ordered one of his soldiers shot for stealing peaches. You stole peaches? That's not what we're here to do. You're not here to question why, but to do and die. Said he was buried near Murfreesboro near a cousin who had died a few months earlier. Lewis is memorialized in a cenotaph in Glasgow Municipal Cemetery in his native Barron County. There was some sort of KET special that was about Asa Lewis too. So there you go. That's the relationship between Braxton Bragg and Asa Lewis. This guy, like I said, he lost Perryville, lost Shiloh. Stones River, it was said that he was a tie, but he lost Stones River. They went ahead and they withdrew. So he deserted his own campaign over and over again too. He wasn't loved nor respected by his troops, but it didn't matter because the Confederates were going to draft a bunch of poor farm boys into fighting their fight. He won the Battle of Chickamauga, but he lost Chattanooga, lost Missionary Ridge, lost Lookout Mountain, lost the Battle of the Wilderness. How did Braxton Bragg eventually die? Well, they lost their home in late 1862. The U.S. Army confiscated the plantation in Thibodaux in Louisiana. It served as a shelter, the Bragg Home Colony for freed people under the control of the Freedmen's Bureau. The couple moved in with his brother, a plantation owner in Lounsboro, Alabama, but they found the life of seclusion there intolerable. 1867, Bragg became the superintendent of the New Orleans Waterworks, but a formerly enslaved African American soon replaced him as the Reconstructionists came to power. 1869, Jefferson Davis offered Bragg a job as an agent for the Carolina Life Insurance Company. He worked there 4 months before becoming dissatisfied with the profession and its low pay. He considered but rejected a position in the Egyptian army. What? In August 1871, he was employed by the city of Mobile, Alabama to improve the river, harbor, and bay, leaving after quarreling with a combination of capitalists. He moved to Texas, appointed the chief engineer. Let's see, in 1876, at the age of 59, he was walking down the street with a friend in Galveston, Texas, when he suddenly fell over unconscious. He was dragged into a drugstore, and he was dead within 10 to 15 minutes. A physician familiar with his history believed that he had died by the brain. Paralysis of the brain, suffering from the degeneration of cerebral blood vessels. An inquest ruled that his death was due to fatal syncope, possibly induced by the organic disease of the heart. He is buried in Magnolia Cemetery. Syncope, commonly known as fainting or passing out, is a loss of consciousness and muscle strength characterized by a fast onset, short duration, and spontaneous recovery. It is caused by a decrease in blood flow to the brain. So, oh man, couldn't have happened to a better guy, huh? You know, death becomes us all. But I just want to kind of compare him. He got to live past the Civil War, right? So they went ahead and gave up. So just like Asa Lewis, he quit too. Asa Lewis was trying to quit, to help his family. But I guess he just went along with the Confederate government. And then he tried to get into insurance. He was going to try to fight for the Egyptian army. Which, why? Why are you going to fight for the Egyptian army in the 1870s? What was going on in Egypt, and why were they reaching out to American Confederates? It's crazy. And then he was just one day walking down the street, and then he fell over unconscious, and then he was dead within the 10 to 15 minutes. So death becomes us all, but I guess in some respect, Bragg wasn't dragged before a firing squad of a bunch of folks and shot down like a rabid dog in front of his own friends, comrades. Friendly fire is pretty bad, but this was intentional friendly fire, and it took 3 volleys. Did they all miss Asa Lewis to begin with? And then they missed him again, and then by the 3rd time they shot him? Fucking shit. So instead of calling it Fort Liberty, Pete Hegseth is going to call it Fort Bragg.